Hello students, in the last video I explained to you the chapter Deep Water. We read how William Douglas had an aversion towards water, how when he was 3 to 4 years old he had gone with his father to California beach, and there he was submerged in the surf of water, and he got to understand the overpowering force of water. Then he decided to learn to swim at the age of 11 or 12 years old in YMCA swimming pool. But then just when he was about to regain his confidence, a misadventure occurred to him. And this is what he is speaking about. An 18-year-old, strong bruiser kind of boy with rippling muscles. He threw him inside the deep end of the swimming pool. And he made a strategy that when he would hit the tiles of the swimming pool, then he would make a big spring upwards, and then he would come up the surface, come to the edge, and he would paddle. But then when he hit the bottom, he made the jump. But what he had thought as a jump was not the jump. He was coming up slowly, and in this process he was swallowing a lot of water. He could see nothing except water, dirty tinge of water. He could not speak. His hands reached for the rope, but he clutched only water. He shouted for help, but no sound came out. Now this kind of description shows that he was drowning. So now we shall continue with the same chapter with the next paragraph. I flailed at the surface of the water. I flailed. So he was over the surface of the water, swallowed and choked. So he kept on swallowing water, and his voice and his throat choked because of it. I tried to bring my legs up, but they hung as dead weights, paralyzed and rigid. So now his legs have become paralyzed and rigid. His legs have become very heavy. He refers to them as dead weights. A great force was pulling me under. So it was as if something was pulling him inside, under. I screamed, but only the water heard me. I had started on the long journey back to the bottom of the pool. So he had come up and now he is going down. So he had started on his journey towards the bottom of the pool the second time. The first time the boy had threw him inside, and then he had gone, and now for the second time he is going inside because he couldn't swim. I struck at the water as I went down, expending my strength as one in a nightmare fights an irresistible force. So when he went down, he spent his whole strength, but still then he was fighting an irresistible force. This irresistible force was that of water. It was his nightmare. It was as if he was in a nightmare. Nightmare, you know. Nightmare is a bad dream. So as if in a nightmare we fight an irresistible force. Similarly here also he is fighting with water, even though he knows that he cannot win. I was getting dizzy. So now he is getting dizzy, means he is kind of losing his consciousness. He is feeling a little bit drowsy, he is feeling sleepy. because he has already expended, he has already spent whole strength. But I remembered the strategy. I would spring from the bottom of the pool and come like a cork to the surface. I would lie flat on the surface, strike out with my arms and thrash with my legs. Then I would get to the edge of the pool and be safe. So this is the second time he's going down, and it was as if he's fighting an irresistible force, and he is feeling dizzy. His legs are paralyzed, rigid, but still then he is remembering the strategy. And what is that strategy? The strategy is that when he touches the bottom, he would thrash upwards, he would spring upwards, come to the surface, paddle and all. So this strategy is still now going inside his mind. But then, even though the strategy is there in his mind, so how he is going down? See, I went down, down endlessly. I opened my eyes. Nothing but water with a yellow glow. Dark water that no one could see through. So it was as if he was going down endlessly. And whenever he opened his eyes, he could see dark water, dark yellow water. He couldn't see anything else. He could see only this thing. And then sheer, stark terror seized me. Terror that knows no understanding. Terror that knows no control. Terror that no one can understand who has not experienced it. So now when he is going down the swimming pool endlessly, and he is not able to see anything, his legs are paralyzed and all, then a sheer stark terror. A sheer stark terror means a very kind of immense terror seized him. He was gripped by fear. Terror that knows no bound. That means limitless terror. Terror that knows no control. That means uncontrollable terror. Terror that no one can understand who has not experienced it. So it's very easy to say that I'm afraid of this or don't be afraid of this. But then that terror you can understand only when you yourself have gone through that terror. So he is now telling that now he is seized with a terror, a kind of terror which is uncontrollable, a kind of terror which is limitless, a kind of terror which nobody can understand until and unless he himself experiences it. So now he has that terror. Terror. I was shrieking underwater. I was paralyzed underwater. Stiff, rigid with fear. So he was paralyzed underwater and he was stiff and rigid with fear. Even in the screams in my throat were frozen. He couldn't speak anything. No sound came out. So screams were frozen. That means it could not come out. Only my heart and the pounding in my heart said that I was still alive. So this is the thing where his legs have stopped working, his all the other body parts, his hands have stopped working, his eyes, they are like seeing only dirty, dark, yellow water, not dirty water, dark yellow water, and he is stiff, he cannot move, he is paralyzed. His only heart is pounding, only heart is beating, which says that he is alive. Only his heart is beating now. So this is a kind of description of how he is now about to succumb to water, how he is now about to surrender to the water and drown finally. Only my heart and the pounding in my head said that I was still alive. And then, in the midst of the terror, came a touch of reason. And when he was seized with such a stark terror, a touch of reason came to him. I must remember to jump when I hit the bottom. At last I felt the tiles under me. So now he felt the tiles under his feet, And then he remembered the strategy that when he touches the tile, then he has to spring upwards. My toes reached out as if to grab them. I jumped with everything I had. So he says that when he felt that his toes are about to touch the bottom of the swimming pool, he jumped with everything he had. Kind of effort when you apply when you are in the last mode of, you can say, saving your life. But the jump made no difference. The water was still around me. I looked for ropes, ladders, water wings. So the jump made no difference. He was still surrounded with water. He searched rope or any ladder or any water wings inside water, but then he couldn't find anything. He was now in a very, very helpless and hopeless condition. Nothing but water. A mass of yellow water held me. See, students, these lines are very important because sometimes the question is asked, explain the kind of fear which the author had, which William Douglas had inside the water, and how does he describe it. There, these lines would help you. That dark yellow water, tinge of yellowishness and all, and now these lines will also help you. See, a mass of yellow water held me. Stark terror took an even deeper hold on me, like a great charge of electricity. So that terror grew more intense. I shook and trembled with fright. So he started trembling with fright, trembling with terror. My arms wouldn't move. My legs wouldn't move. I tried to call for help, to call for mother. Nothing happened. So he tried to call for help, but then nothing was kind of helping him. No sound was coming out from his throat. His legs were not working. His arms were not working. Nothing was working. So kind of nothing happened. And then, strangely, there was light. I was coming out of the awful yellow water. At least my eyes were. My nose was almost out too. And then he felt that he was coming out of the water. He felt that there was light. He felt that there was light. At least his eyes were seeing the light. And his nose was almost out too. What does this mean? This means that he has come above the surface of the water in the swimming pool the second time. But then only his eyes have come up and almost a little bit his nose. That's why he is able to see light or feel light. Then I started down a third time. So see, he couldn't get over the water, get above the water, above the surface of the water. And he is coming now the second time. And this is going to be more dangerous for him. I sucked for air and got water. So he wanted to inhale water. He wanted to inhale oxygen, air. But he sucked inside water. The yellowish light was going out. The yellowish light was going out means he is now again going down deeper inside the swimming pool. Then all effort ceased. Till now he was striving. He was struggling. But now his all effort ceased, stopped. I relaxed. Even my legs felt limp. That means his legs weren't working. And a blackness swept over my brain. So it was as if there was a blackout inside his brain. Everything was blackened. It wiped, now see the sentence, very important sentence. It wiped out fear. It wiped out terror. There was no more panic. It was quiet and peaceful. Till now he is afraid. Till now he is shivering, trembling with fear. But now when his mind has blacked out, blackness has swept over his brain. That means his thinking capacity has, I suppose, gone out. Then all of a sudden everything is very quiet, everything is very peaceful, and there was no more panic. So this shows that now he is losing his senses, consciousness. When you lose consciousness, then everything seems to be very quiet and peaceful. So here William Douglas also has started to lose his consciousness. Nothing to be afraid of. This is nice. To be drowsy. See the sentences here. They have been given with unending full stops. So that means this feeling is very intense. This feeling of peace is very intense, very deep, unending. So nothing to be afraid of. This is nice. To be drowsy. To go to sleep. No need to jump. Too tired to jump. It's nice to be carried gently. To float along in space. So he was as if he thought as if somebody was carrying him gently. Somebody that he was floating in space. It was this feeling of him. Tender arms around me. Tender arms like mothers. Now I must go to sleep. So he felt as if he was carried by somebody. He felt as if he was floating in space. He felt as if the arms which were carrying him were very, very tender. The fear of panic, the panic, the shivering and everything, now they did not exist. Okay. Now see the next line. I crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell. So now the author says that he crossed to oblivion. Now what's oblivion? Oblivion is a state where you forget everything. Is a condition where you forget everything. So he crossed to oblivion and then his curtain of life fell means he felt that he was dead. He forgot everything and he felt as if he was dead. The next I remember, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool, vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. So, this indicates that he has been saved from drowning. When the author felt that he had drowned, he was dead, then that time, on the edge of his death, he was saved by somebody. And what he remembers next? He remembers that at the side of the pool, he is vomiting. He is lying beside the pool, vomiting. And the boy, the chap, who threw him inside, he was telling, I was just fooling. That means he had just made a joke. So he did not intend anything. He did not intend to drown William Douglas. It was simply that out of fun he had threw him inside. Someone said, the kid nearly died. Be all right now. Let's carry him to the locker room. So someone said that he was nearly dead. So let's carry him to the locker room. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. I couldn't eat that night. For days a haunting fear was in my heart. The slightest exertion upset me, making me wobbly in the knees and sick to my stomach. So, after several hours, he went to his home. But then, he was completely trembling. He shook and he cried. He trembled. He felt wobbly in his knees. That means he felt very weak in his knees. For several days, there was a haunting fear. There was a fear in his heart. He couldn't eat that night. Slightest exertion upset him. That means he could not do things of much strength and power. So this kind of fear had gripped him. The panic had gripped him. And from here we see that the writer has this water phobia. So dear students, this part describes about the incident where he was nearly drowned. Go through this and try to answer the questions which have been given under the heading of think as you read. First question is, what is the misadventure that William Douglas speaks about? And second is, what were the series of emotions and fears that Douglas experienced when he was thrown into the pool? What plans did he make to come to the surface? So these two questions, please try. Although I would explain these questions in my later videos, but you try to answer them, because I have covered both the questions in my last and this video. So let's meet in my next video. Till then, goodbye. Take good care of yourselves.